before that, I didn't know anything, right? No one has a passion for anything they suck at. Get past the passion part at the beginning of any process, whatever it is, right? And focus on what's the opportunity here. So for us, it's like in the industry, like everybody talks about the money you can make. So let's focus on that. Just make sure that you're aware of the problem. You can't avoid it.
Right.
They're going to come anyway, so you might as well give your team a little bit of a rundown. If your team's looking elsewhere, I bet you have bigger problems.
Hello, friends. I'm Adam Loveridge, and welcome to the Home Services Marketing Podcast from Growth to Acquisition. I'm the owner and founder of Blue Forge Marketing. We are a home services marketing agency specializing in heating and air conditioning, plumbing, remodeling, and garage door contractors. For more information about Blue Forge Marketing, visit us online at blueforgemarketing.com. Hello and welcome to the Home Services Marketing Podcast from Growth to Acquisition. My name is Adam Loveridge with Job Calls, and I'm really excited today to be joined by Daniel Guest. Daniel is with Guest Plumbing and HVAC out of Toronto, Ontario, and also runs the Guest Life podcast, I believe, and is involved with the Trade Smart College out there as well. And I'm real excited to have Daniel on here today to talk about entrepreneurship, to talk about a variety of different things. And before we get started, Daniel, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's absolutely my pleasure. So, Daniel, before we get maybe too far into this, let's talk about your journey and Guest Plumbing and HVAC. How long have you guys been in business?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. So we started in 2015. Been a licensed plumber to that point for 7 years. So started pretty young in my career to get my apprenticeship going and then get licensed. In Ontario, we have a red seal trade, so you have to be working as a licensed plumber for 2 years. So I got my license in 2013, opened the business in 2015, and haven't looked back ever since. So yeah, it's been 10 years this year.
Oh, that's fantastic! Congratulations on 10 years. What has your growth looked like between then and now?
Yeah, so we started as just a plumbing company. So the company used to be called just Guest Plumbing and Heating. For anybody that's in the industry, they understand the difference between heating and HVAC. Usually, hot water heating is what heating stands for, and HVAC is air conditioning, and heating and ventilation. So yeah, the pre-COVID, just a plumbing company. We were growing pretty rapidly. We actually won 2 awards for fastest growing company in the city that we were working out of, which was pretty cool at the time. And then our market share just kind of stopped. Everything that was deemed essential was not the kind of work that we were doing. So we were doing a little bit of residential, but going more into the commercial industrial space. And so, yeah, we went from 22 plumbers down to 4, which was a pretty scary time in the business, but was able to kind of wrap it all together, persevere. And then throughout that journey, always look at the positives out of what comes from some of the challenges that we go through. But we actually took HVAC on in-house. So for about 2 years, we ran as Guest Heating and Air Conditioning, and then we merged the two businesses into Guest Plumbing and HVAC. Probably 2020. So that was
Fantastic. And
yeah, that was a pretty good part of the journey. Just we were subcontracting so much work that taking it in-house kind of supported the lack of growth on the plumbing side, and then joining together in our industry where we are, not a lot of companies do both, or at the scale that we do. We're about a 50-50 split.
when you say 50-50 between HVAC and plumbing or between residential and commercial?
Well, both fit, so 25, 25, 25, 25.
Okay.
But yeah, so 50-50 plumbing and HVAC. Obviously, anybody in the industry knows revenues in HVAC are a little bit bigger, but in terms of staffing and scale, I would call it about 50-50. And then commercial to residential, it all depends on the year. Right now, housing's been down, so I would say our commercial is probably up 65-35. But as soon as residential comes back, which we know it will, we'll be right back up there in a 50-50.
That's absolutely fantastic. And how many trucks then or vans do you currently have on the road?
Between the pickup trucks and the vans, probably about 28, 29 vans, trucks, and we're about 40 to 45 staff at any time.
Well, that's awesome. And so you really then in about 4 years have gone from 22 tax down to 4 and then back up to over 22 again, I would say.
Yeah. Our techs right now we're sitting about 30,
About 30.
30, 32, depending on the week. But Yeah, it's been great, honestly. Learning the business and understanding. We use a theory as like this, define a lot of times when we're sharing about defining entrepreneurship, it's like so like defining on who you are. So you start off as an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur is somebody that is very entrepreneurial but works within a business. So you can kind of categorize them as anything from a number two to a number 10, depending on the scale of the business.
Mm,
But has the freedom to be entrepreneurial within a business, but obviously isn't that visionary lead, and usually doesn't want to be in the spotlight.
sure.
Is a funny characteristics of an entrepreneur. And then there's a solopreneur. So solopreneurs, your realtors, your mortgage brokers, even some of your like small medical, so your dentists that don't want to run a big practice or something like that, or sometimes your family doctors are entrepreneurs, or sorry, solopreneurs. And then your entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs, it's funny when I talk to others talking about people. So the definition of entrepreneur is somebody that has a vision that wants to lead and support the growth of others within their business and the businesses that they support. So when I hear people and they talk about people, we have a very great team, but also expanding and growing and shaping that team into what the business is looking for, but also what individually they want to do.
Gotcha, gotcha. And in your own journey, have you found did you start as an entrepreneur or did you start as an entrepreneur and graduate your way up?
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't an entrepreneur. I needed some guidance when I was younger. Um,
Hmm.
almost like I think like business father figure, if that makes sense. Never really had that as a kid. My dad was not very business savvy, so just learning the ins and outs of the business, and then also as you grow, I remember like mentorship was for me, anyways, has been really defined as two levels of mentorship, and mentorship number one is that person that'll get you into solopreneurship, and they talk about business and working for yourself and don't work for the man and
Right,
all
right.
these kind of those types of sayings. But it's very apparent that they discuss don't get too big. You have to feed the beast, and people are going to steal from you, and your clients aren't going to pay you, and all these fears that they had. And it's
You'll
usually
have all these
because,
taxes you'll have to pay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's you're paying tax and making money. Um, so yeah, so just talking about that type of mentor, it's very definitive when you find the next stage of mentor, which is talking. They talk about people, they talk about their team, they talk about us and we, instead of like mine and theirs. So
Hmm.
it's it's very special when you find those types of people that come into your life. I was very fortunate to have some.
And who has been that mentor for you or mentors for you?
Oh, it's endless. Shane Van Barneveld's one that I speak of very highly. He's one of those guys that, I mean, it took like he's a contractor in the area now, a builder, but I mean, I flooded a basement one of the first jobs we did for him, and I still hadn't met him, and I was like, this guy doesn't want to meet me. Like I've flooded a basement. Like, what's it gonna take to get him here? But it was really just a showcase of how great his team and his leadership was, that it was, something to be dealt with. But we've become dear friends, business partners. Like we bought homes together, roommates at one point. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Just kind of, I always say, if you find somebody that's willing to keep talking to you, don't let them go.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate that, and I've had myself many mentors, including my father, who was really more on that entrepreneurial side. He ran a few different businesses. In fact, that was where I spent probably the first 10 years of my career. And I'm really grateful for the for that experience. But I've had many since, and it sounds like you've had more than one mentor along the way as well.
Yeah, yeah. You got to define. There's a lot of sayings in terms of mentorship, like, would you trade places with them? I think that's kind of a loaded question, but really, what do you take away in good and what do you take away in bad? A lot of people, I think there was a write up on us once in the paper, and they said that I always wanted to be in business for myself. And that was absolutely never the case. My first showcase of bosses or business owners or leaders, whatever you want to call it was the last thing I wanted. They were first in, last out. I was always like, man, I can be a plumber and make a good career and get into some real estate and have some investment properties, and I'll be a happy guy for my lifestyle.
Right.
until an opportunity came where I couldn't really pass it up, and it was a good first project, and then kind of haven't looked back. But yeah, you really got to define who's giving you the advice and why. Especially some older mentors can be kind of projecting some of their shortcomings.
Yeah.
We've seen
Yeah,
that quite a bit.
absolutely. Well, I can appreciate that. And what was the why for you in terms of the, you said you had an opportunity come up. Was that just it, that something dropped in your lap and you never looked back, or was there
Yeah,
some kind
no,
of burning desire in there somewhere?
no desire, no, nothing like that. It was, I mean, it's turned into a desire. That's ebbed and flows as the business has grown and struggled and challenged. Like, I had a funny comment the other day. You talking about like people talking about giving up and entrepreneurship, and you know, I thought about going to jail the other day. It's like just so overwhelmed with some stuff we were dealing with. I was like, what about jail? Or like, what if I do like some white collar crime and just go to jail? I was like, what would life be like that? And it's just so funny when we catch ourselves. I
Well, I
took a
don't think
course.
you have a a lot of responsibilities in jail, so that's
Yeah,
that
it's like,
that could be a
going
plus.
from all these responsibilities and what some of the challenges I was dealing with to fuck it, right? Like, let's just go this
Right.
way. That was for me, when people talk about suicidal thoughts or giving up or whatever, it's just, I took a course and it was, you can't control your first thought, but you can control how you manage your second thought. So the faster you can realize that your mind's just there to kind of keep you safe, the better. But yeah, like, no, there was no burning desire really. I think at a point I had to make a decision of what is my why. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of I had a really great question asked to me once was like, well, how big do you want to get? Um,
Yeah.
and the question was like, well, as big as I can. And I think that it's a definitive answer of like, until you understand what type of person you are, like, you know, um, I remember talking like, well, don't get too corporate, and corporate being this big bad word. Well, like corporate's like, I don't know if you've ever gone to Apple, if you use Apple products or gone into an Apple store, but it's like one of the best experiences I've ever had on both sides of the coin. Thinking about being an employee for Apple and also being a patron. If you didn't book your appointment, how the service is supported and how they push you to like just follow in line with their process. And if you follow their process, you will get incredible service. So I remember like fighting the thought of like, well, corporate just means I'm organized with processes and procedures.
Right. Right. I'm curious about that too, because I mean, process is obviously a big deal, and we've talked a little bit about EOS. The E Myth is specifically something that's coming to mind. For me right now when it comes to that, and this idea that taking, if you will, off the technician hat and putting on the owner hat, but really it's like at the end of the day, how you systemize the business is ultimately, I think, what is going to really either make it a smooth ride or that sort of constant grind, because you're always having to fix things that aren't just getting fixed through process. And I'm curious, what has your journey looked like in that regard when it comes from, starting out as a plumber, to probably on your own and in a solopreneur, right, in one truck, to now 30 technicians working under you. What did those processes and procedures look like, and what does the evolution of that look like?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. When it comes to process and procedures, it's different for everybody, right? Because it's also the amount of work that we do is so unique. So if you were just furnace AC HVAC company, right? Furnace AC heat pumps, let's call it water tanks. You've got four standard installation things that you're putting in, right? So when it gets into like, well, what if you do a boiler? What if you do this? It's like, okay, we're gonna plug those in. Because we do so much construction and so much service, and then we do installs as well.
Mhm.
What we try to do is refine the individual's process. So we just actually came up with this about 3 months ago, which is the guest steps to success. So it's just a four-step method. It's good for managers as well as technicians so that you can understand where a technician would be at. So essentially, before the job starts, we ask yourself four questions. What are the 5 to 10 steps that I'm going to be doing for the job? So that would be like something specific. So it's not going to be gather material, unload the truck. It's going to be like, this is the step one, this is the step two. So say you're installing a furnace, it would be, disconnect the power, remove the old furnace, make sure the breakers are off, clean up the area for new installation, install the
Right.
new furnace, hook up the gas, test to ensure proper operation, then install the thermostat. So like whichever one you think is right or not right, some guys might throw everything to the side, bring the new furnace in right away. So the step two from that is what material or what questions do you have for the steps that you created? So step one is 5 to 10 processes. Question two is what are the questions you have? So where's the vent termination? What size of furnace are we going into? Are we, purchasing our own ductwork, or, what are we reusing the gas line, something like that.
Yeah.
Number three is what materials are needed for the job. Usually that asks more questions. And then number four is what tools do we need to complete the job successfully? And again, potentially ask more questions. Where's the hammer drill? Do I have a hand today? All these things. And so what we try to do with that is just streamline our process of an installation, but also from a manager's perspective, do they know that the technician knows what to do?
Right.
And what that can do is it can alleviate hundreds of calls a day when you have a crew of 10 guys and everybody's asking you where the hammer drill is, or what type of material they should be using, or so it gets them to think a little bit. And then we have a couple models that are just mantras on processes rather than like specifics, like this is how you install a furnace.
Right.
These are the steps that you do. So we've got checklists, which are great,
Hmm.
and they're applicable if utilized. Being 10 years of business, we got a lot of work to do, um, but we're working on it. And then, yeah, we call them the guest mantras, like 131. So you can't come to your manager with a problem without three potential solutions. So one,
I
identify
like
the
that one.
yeah. So number one is identify the problem. Number two, which is three, what are three potential solutions? And then number one is what's the solution that you think is best. So what it does again is it allows people to think rather than just call right away with the problem. Some people don't even know what the real root of the problem is.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that a lot. I mean, when I went to school, when I finished off my bachelor's degree, actually, a lot of what they would have us do was take these, fictitious situations. Right, we've got this company, and this is what marketing is saying, and this is what sales is saying, and et cetera, et cetera. But the idea was that we had to go through and really define and frame, if you will, the problem or problems into an opportunity. And for me, that was a big shift of learning that every problem is actually really just an opportunity in disguise. And so if I have these problems that keep coming up every time we go out to install a furnace, right? Nobody knows where the hammer drill is, as an example, then what an incredible opportunity to create some sort of a system around, managing the hammer drill inventory so that that doesn't happen and keep happening repeatedly over and over and over again. And it sounds like that's kind of the basic idea of what you guys are behind as well.
Yeah, yeah, we try to simplify it, right? Like our industry is so diverse and so complex. To completely systemize all the installs that we do, it's just it's a lot of work. I mean, and I think it would be forever changing. But getting down to the foundation of empowering your team to get like have the ability to learn for themselves and also think for themselves, and make guided mistakes instead of just flat out mistakes. Which is always best for the wallet. Yeah,
Sure.
and it's a lot of fun, right? Like seeing somebody work through a problem and also, understanding meeting people where they're at. This industry's, I mean, it's done wonders for myself and the people around me and anybody I touch with it. It's like before that I didn't know anything, right? Like no one has a passion for anything they suck at.
That's going up on my computer screen, just so you know, as a quote after this. I'm printing it off and shit. That's fantastic. Tell me more about that.
I mean, we see these kids all the time, and the parents bring them to the job fair. Someone's like, "Well, why plumbing or why HVAC?" It's like They don't know. Like, they're just being told to come here, and they probably didn't have good enough grades to go to college, so they're coming into their trades, and it's like, well, they don't have they're not good at it, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're not good at hockey, you're probably not gonna wanna play more of it. If you're not good at football, you're probably not gonna wanna do it. If you're really good at video games, all of a sudden you're focused on them, right? And so, one of the things that I look for is, like, get past the passion part at the beginning of any process, whatever it is, right? And focus on what's the opportunity here. So for us, it's like in the industry, like everybody talks about the money you can make. So let's focus on that for a 17-year-old kid, right? Coming into the industry. So I always say, hey, do you like money? You're usually the home and haw. So yeah. I said, okay, well, how much have you currently made in a week? So part-time job, maybe a couple $100 a week. I said, okay, well, you're about to get double that every single week for the rest of your life. What are you gonna buy? And then it gets them thinking like, well, like maybe an Xbox or maybe new shoes. Or it's like, okay, well, you're gonna need more. You're gonna need more stuff to buy because you can buy that in 2 weeks. What else are you gonna buy? You got a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a partner, like, and then you get them thinking and say, oh, it's like, okay, this thing that you're no good at can get you closer to stuff you really enjoy. And on that journey, because you're no good in school anyway when you're doing your undergrad, right? So on this journey, you can pick up a skill set where you're all of a sudden the solution to somebody's problem. So every business
Yeah.
is created for to solve a problem. The grocery store is created to solve hunger and nutrients and fuel, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Our
Right.
the
Right.
clothing we're made is either for fashion or comfort, right? Um, Air conditioning is to solve comfort, heat, cooling, all those different things. So it's like in business, we're always seeking more problems. And what we say is like our biggest challenge is always our biggest opportunity if solved.
Right.
If
Right.
solved is the key word there, right? Like if that big problem, obviously you probably heard of eat the frog. It's like if that thing is done, what comes next? Maybe that
Yeah.
oh, we need to like the classic is I can't find nobody's out there, can't hire anybody. I go, how much time have you spent on hiring? How much actual time have you spent on hiring somebody in your team? Well, I put an ad out. It's like, that's it.
Right.
How many hours was that? 30 minutes that you had a pre-generated ad that you put up once, and then you reviewed hopefully people like go to it. There's so many more things that you can do because if you're thinking about it and you have that problem solved, which is the biggest challenge, biggest opportunity of solve, what if you had that extra technician? What if you had that extra staff member? You'd be able to do all this extra work and facilitate your clients' needs. So I always challenge people, and we challenge ourselves daily at Guest, which is how much time are we spending on the solution?
Yeah. I really, really like that. That's a I could go a couple different directions from this, but I think hearing what you're talking about, I'd like to maybe switch over to EOS a little bit and talk about that because I know that that's something that you've been implementing now. It sounds like for at least a little while,
Yeah,
and I think the whole nature of the L10s and IDS and all of that is really about how do we solve problems and keep that problem from repeatedly coming up. So tell me a little bit about your journey there and why you got started with EOS and what type of an impact that's really had in your operation.
I think in the states it's called Vistage, which is a peer coaching group. In Canada, it's called Tech Canada,
Mhm.
TEC. So I joined a peer coaching group when I couldn't afford to. And it was like, well, I can't afford not to. I need some help. I need some guidance. And the first or second meeting, they were like, oh, you got to get on EOS. EOS will solve all your problems. And, very frankly, I said, go to hell. I paid you guys 20 grand. You're going to solve my problems.
Right,
But what it was just like a group of like a great organization in tech and Vistage found that EOS was a great solution for most entrepreneurs' challenges. Easy to implement, successful to scale, getting alignment, obviously getting traction, which is what the book's called. Um, I I got so frustrated with it was now I will not. I do some coaching for free for anybody that will actually read the book. So um, I give the book out for free as a gift, and I tell them that I'll talk to them the second time once they've read it. The challenging thing is people don't want help; they want to
right,
complain. So I've had I've had 3 people call me back, tell me that they've read the book. One is it was my little protege, who's not little at all. He's about 6'5", and makes me look like a child. But he runs a very successful electrical company in Hamilton, Ontario. So, yeah, his name's Joe Mercanti. Um, he read the book. He took notes every chapter. He was ready to rock. He had a meeting with an implementer. And yeah, so I coach him once a month and give him a little bit of guidance, and hopefully he doesn't fall off the wagon as often as I used to.
That's awesome. And how
Yeah.
it just,
I
I'm sure
feel
this,
like anybody in business that has more than one staff has to read the book and then has to follow the guidelines. There is no reason to do it without it. And there's no better platform on that, in my opinion, that I've found. There's another application called Scaling Up, um, which is also like very similar, but I actually interviewed both of them, and Scaling Up said, well, for the size that you're in, they explained it. Nobody goes from scaling up to EOS, but many people go from EOS to scaling up. So, it's a little bit of a stepping stone, but I I would be very interested to see at what point you shift from EOS to scaling up.
yeah, yeah. I'd be a little curious about that myself. And if you're there at, 30 or well, not 30 employees, closer to 40 employees, and haven't moved there yet, then maybe that's saying something. But I definitely have heard of EOS a lot more than I've heard of scaling up. And I'm just curious about something, and I'm sure you probably don't know exact numbers on this, but how many of Gina Wickman's books do you think you've given away, and how many people have read it and taken you up on your offer to coach them?
Easily 50 I've given away. Like
Hmm.
give them away as gifts. I never used to read. So I always find a gift rather than someone else purchasing it is supportive. I would say successfully, I've had 5, maybe 6 or 7 guys. A lot of some that have gone through coaching. So maybe I've given out more than 50, to be honest with you, because Jeremy, I guess I'm his biggest salesman. But I mean, I just when you believe in something, it's so easy to sell it.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Well,
Yeah, I'm surrounded by quite a few entrepreneurs that like, and these aren't guys that I coach. These are just guys that have gotten on the program. But I have some of the younger guys that aren't really ready for an implementer. Um, I offer the support from, but yeah, like most of my friends in our group, when somebody in the group's found something, we don't ask questions. We just go and do it.
gotcha, gotcha. No, I like that a lot, and I'd like to switch gears with you here just a little bit and talk for a second about marketing because I'd like to get a sort of a pulse, if you will, of people that come on this show to just really, what are you doing out there? What's being successful? And maybe my question more is, starting out, how were you marketing, and what is that graduated up to, when you're closer to 30 techs and 40 employees?
Yeah, no, it's a question I get asked a lot with. Not to toot our own horn, but we were definitely quick to market. It's actually funny. I'm wearing a T-shirt right now that we have. I don't know if you can see this or not. Look, we got these branded gym shirts. Like we were the first company in our in the GTA, I would say, that had its own Instagram account. 10 years ago, I got made fun of quite a bit for it. Um,
I
yeah, it
think a
was
lot
like,
of people did back then, and now there's like, haha.
yeah.
Some of the
So
TikTokers.
yeah, like you know what I mean. Like, I think it gives you, it just gives people like a pulse, who you are, what you are. How'd you find me? Because we're active on LinkedIn and we showcase our brand and we showcase that I'll probably pick up your phone call. Um, it makes sense. But at the beginning, so our
That's
whole
probably
brand,
how everybody finds me too, man. Like all
yeah.
day,
So
every day, email, email.
our whole brand is based on Apple. So what is Apple? Apple, the logo says it used to say Apple under it. Now most of the time you just see the Macintosh logo. And then the whole point of it was plumbing and HVAC can always change. And
Right.
so we've been able to do that with the podcast. We've been able to do that with plumbing. We've been able to do that with heating and air conditioning when we were doing that. But also like our branding, a friend of mine that lives in the UK. I was talking to him about the vehicles that we're going to buy. And, I was humming and hawing about used vans and this and that. He goes, Dan, he goes, get the biggest van you can and put the biggest billboard you can on it. Because all you're doing all day is driving that thing around. I said, okay.
Right.
Platform wise, Instagram's fantastic locally, but you do have to be active. And back in the day when people are talking about like unnecessary followers, um, engagement is so much more important than following.
Hmm.
That's what we found. I don't need people in Florida repping guest plumbing out of Toronto, unless they're going to somehow give me more business locally. Um, TikTok has come up pretty rapidly, but we do a lot on LinkedIn. Just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. We do a lot of B2B. So understanding other estimators, other project managers. When you are marketing on LinkedIn, you have to be careful of recruiters. What we always say is like, just make sure that you're aware of the problem. You can't avoid it.
Right.
They're going to come anyway, so you might as well give your team a little bit of a rundown. If your team's looking elsewhere, I bet you have bigger problems than their LinkedIn account. Um, so you
Right.
want to kind of keep that active, and then I would just say consistency and engagement. Obviously, Google plays a huge factor in the home services space as you kind of flow through, what you want to get out of your business, um, what your business can afford in terms of like a ticket sale. In our industry, like a mechanical company, for instance, the reason that they usually put mechanical is that they don't want to be found on Google. They do most of their research on job boards, which are like local city job boards that doesn't matter if you show up in a white van or a beautiful van, cheapest bid gets the job. And then just getting involved in the community. I've been able to sit on the board of the Chamber of Commerce that's here, our Builders Association. I was the under 40 chairman. Getting involved in those organizations can really it's in my opinion is undervalued, but it is a
Yeah.
long-term play. So joining
Sure.
associations, a lot of people are like, well, I spent $1,500 this year and I went to 4 events and I didn't get any business. um, Remember that the organization's been around for a lot longer than you've been alive, so value that and respect it, add value before you ask to take stuff, um, whether that's your community or what your time, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then one of the things we've been doing recently, which would be great for you, Adam, obviously with job calls, is just like understanding your online presence and then having a good company understand it. So we constantly got like tiered up with our website. So new
Mhm.
website, new management, new website, new management. Everybody's sending an email. We need to update your website and manage it. Um,
Ah,
we're getting to the point now where like, you got to understand what you're doing for growth. So at I think our third or fourth year, we brought an in-house content creator.
nice.
I would say a little bit premature, but honestly, if you look at it, the saying that we say is everybody knows who we are, but we don't know who everybody is. Not from an arrogant standpoint, but just from like a consistency and awareness. I do have a bit of a marketing mind, so like understanding how you're going to continuously get engagement. We have a ton of ideas down the pipeline in terms of we've done door hangers and we've done lawn signs and all this stuff, but
Sure.
you have to stay consistent with those. And then understanding like a growing company should be spending 5 to 8% of their revenue on marketing, which we were nowhere near. We're probably a 3 to 4 at the moment, um,
Mhm.
but again, it adds up quick when you're talking about management fees for a company that's doing your website and managing your Google ads, and then actually paying Google itself, which is a beast, right?
It is indeed a beast. um, what I love about what you've done though, and what you're talking about here is it's not just about ROAS, right? Or how much, how many dollars can I put into the Google machine and get, and how many dollars and a half can I get back, right? Or $2 or $3 or $10, right? But what you're doing is you're creating an omnipresent, really marketing system that is including not only the digital side of it, right? Both social and search and ads, obviously, but to me, ads falls under search, or at least Google Ads falls under search. But you've also got referral marketing in there. You've got good old fashioned networking, even with, I would say, probably competitors in the area or closely related, companies that way as well. Obviously, in some of the groups that you're in, and you are putting in those efforts to really have people know you in the local community, and all of that ties to brand one way or another. I mean, that is, that's what your brand becomes is we're just everywhere. And I love the gym shirts, by the way. Have you gone to like the local CrossFits and said, we want to give you, free shirts so that everybody's wearing your swag?
Yeah, so it's funny. So we were, Alex Hermosi is someone I listen to often, and he actually had a great he was the inspiration for it, which was like, get a Google review, get a 5-star Google review, and you get a free gym shirt. And it's like, so you're hitting the ball twice, right? You're having somebody wear your gym shirt, which obviously you make them nice enough so somebody would want to wear them.
Yeah,
Um, but also they're walking around as your brand, and then also you have a Google review. So it's like if you think about the return on investment for like a new location. So we just opened in Toronto. So if somebody takes a gym shirt from us, it's a one Google review. So think about you buy 100 gym shirts, which is what we did. You get 100 Google
right.
reviews. That happens pretty quickly. And a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of people get misconstrued on what a Google review is.
Hmm.
A Google review is a showcase of what a business is like to interact with. It doesn't mean they have to. That's why your friends and family are able to give you a Google review.
Sure.
It's not cheating. It's not lying. It's I've engaged with this person or this business, and I've enjoyed my experience.
I think subcontractors too, right? And vendors for
Mhm.
that matter are also excellent sources to get reviews. And when I have clients that are struggling with, gosh, we just, we can't get reviews at the rate that we'd really like to get reviews. It's like, well, have you asked your vendors for reviews? Are you asking your subcontractors for reviews? What about your suppliers that you work with every single day that you have massive credit lines with? How about your banker? Right? Why would you not ask everybody around you to help give that social proof? And then not only that, but in the so doing of the thing, you're asking them for reviews and to think about you. And the next time they've got a plumbing or HVAC issue that comes up, you're also going to be more top of mind because you're staying just top of mind, right? And I think what you're doing is really, really smart marketing. And I think what you're doing is really smart branding. And I can see why you're able to, frankly, I don't want to say get away with, but get away with spending less as a percentage of revenue than you might have to if you were just on, I'm just going to keep putting a dollar into the ad machine and getting, $3 to $10 back, right?
Yeah, we get a lot of traction on people searching us directly, which is ultimately what you're looking for, right? Um, the challenges as well as understanding from a marketing perspective, and this is where private equity kind of sometimes can get caught, is like we can also only do so much work with with the staff
Sure.
that we have. So, one of the things that we're trying to put in place is like, almost like a priority booking, which again is a really slippery slope if you're making commitments. But I mean, having 30 staff you think is great until you have a heat wave.
Right.
Um, and then you're euchred, and you got clients that need you that have paid the fees, and then you got a woman that's got her kid that doesn't have AC, and you're like, what do I do?
Right.
So we try to be fair. We always say we're going to be a really wealthy and well off company, but it's not going to be off any back of one person or any one job. So just consistently adding value and providing great service, but also like learning along the way. We make tons of mistakes and owning up to those mistakes, paying for them if needed, but also
Yeah.
showcasing to the team how to not recreate them if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in talking about reviews there too, it's I remember early. I mean, I've been around long enough that I remember when Google Places came out and reviews started being a thing on Google, right?
Mhm.
So it's it's been really neat to watch the evolution, if you will, of reputation management. But for years, we've been coaching people that it doesn't matter if you get a bad review. Okay, nobody really expects a company to have a 5-star reputation, like an exact, and it almost looks a little fishy when you do. The important thing though is when you get a bad review, how do you follow it up? Right. And I think that really speaks to kind of who you are as a business owner and who you are as a company as well. And as far as that idea that we know we're going to make mistakes, but it's when we get arrogant about it or when we get defensive or standoffish about fixing the mistakes, that's when I think you turn off customers and turn them away. But if we fix the mistakes and we respond to those negative reviews and treat those people like they're valued customers, just like we would our valued customers, I find that that has a real endearing quality for anybody else who might be reading those reviews to say, this seems like a solid company. And I'm curious what your, what how you feel about that, maybe just philosophically.
Yeah, man, people are crazy. People are fucking crazy. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like normally we get a bad review. It's someone's not like 95% of someone wants money off their bill. 95% of the time.
Right.
Call them up. Hey, what's going on? Ah, it's like they don't want to tell you that they want money off their bill, or they don't understand the costs, right?
Sure.
Our vans are anywhere between 65 and $100,000 outfitted. We're driving directly to a client's house. We charge $125 an hour with a truck charge or a first hour fee. However, that year we've decided to make up the costs associated with it.
Sure.
We don't make a dollar on a 1 hour service call. It's just how it is, especially if we're not replacing anything. Um, and some people like, they don't want to pay travel. It's like, we're coming to your house with
Sure.
a licensed technician and $100,000 truck, and you don't want to pay us to come. That's just not okay, right? Like we can't levitate there, especially in Toronto. It's one of the like busiest GTAs or metropolises in the world,
Yeah.
which is horribly driven, like some of the worst highways. But again, it's did we we always say look in the mirror. Every time you're pointing at the mirror, there's three fingers pointing back at you. So, you know,
Yeah.
did we set the right expectation? Did we give them the tools to succeed? And did we support them along the way? Before we can ask ourselves those questions, and those are 100% correct, then it's their fault. But usually it's our fault. We could have done better. We could have shared better. A lot of the times, some of the challenges that we have is like they don't want to pay for two technicians, even though we only have two technicians available in the truck. So
Right.
for us, it's like, well, we're just trying to help. But then you get a client after the fact, right? Like, who wants to pay for their meal after they made it, right?
Right.
No one has a problem paying at the grocery store, but everybody has a problem paying at the end of a good meal, right? They're full. So, one of the things that we try to do is just be as transparent as possible, but also, you get people on the phone in a panic, especially if there's an emergency. They aren't listening. They just want to hear you say they got there. So we try to send out an email afterwards confirming that they've got everything. But um, it doesn't happen often, but usually I would say twice a month we get a bad Google review that was almost immediately turned around.
That's awesome. That's
Just call
awesome,
them,
man.
see what's going on, right? Like the odd time, like again, very rarely it's based on anything but price.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that a lot too. You mentioned earlier private equity, and it was a kind of fleeting thing. And I know that we talked a little bit earlier about private equity, but what is your exit strategy with guest plumbing and HVAC? Do you see an acquisition in your future or some sort of, private equity entertainment or where do you see yourself in that whole conundrum, if you will?
Yeah, as I get older, I look at what do I want out of my life, and how life can be enjoyed. Money's great, but for me, I'm 34 years old. Just turned it last month. I got a lot of life left, a lot of
Happy
excitement
birthday,
left.
by the way.
Thank you. Um, Private equity's approached us a couple times. Again, we have a pretty big presence, especially we opened our second location and a third satellite location.
Hmm.
We're definitely in their radar, but understanding how EBITDA works is very important when thinking or discussing about selling a business. Feel really bad for some of the baby boomers that are going through sales now that haven't set themselves up properly. I think just a little bit on ignorance, but like also reality is we have a lot more access to information nowadays that beforehand guys didn't have, or it
Sure.
wasn't it wasn't as able to be shared, right? Like you went to your local banker in the local town that you're in or city that you're in, and you had the M&A guy that was also in the same branch. And now it's like, I can use an M&A guy from the States and sell to somebody from the States in Canada. That couldn't happen 30 years ago. That just wasn't, it didn't exist, right?
Sure.
There was no point. So now the economies of scale. I mean, there's some guys in the States that are just buying anywhere in the world, open up locations in, in areas or countries that they think make sense. So it's very, very fascinating. I think it gives, I wouldn't say we're a little guy, but on a big scale, we're little. It gives us an opportunity to showcase some grit and then also like create an exit strategy, whether it's internal or external. Um,
Yeah.
I think when you're building a business with people, it's so important to maybe give that equity to your team rather than a conglomerate, and allow your team to run with it as much as possible. It's something that I've always wanted. I've wanted some of the key stakeholders in our business to be involved from an equity perspective.
Sure.
That doesn't take away from the fact that I am the one that risked everything. Um, as people are building their careers at any organization, they've built their careers at an organization. If that organization fails or falters, they still have their careers to be there. Whereas, like, I personally guaranteed it for everything in our business. So, not giving up too much equity just because of some feelings, but
Sure.
I think long term, it's great to know that there's a private equity available, and I think I feel very fortunate that I have access to that knowledge now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And starting to kind of wrap up our conversation here a little bit, and coming back to the entrepreneurship side of it, and I'm going to kind of plug on the why here a little bit again too, because I know that you're involved with the Trade Smart College, and also the Guest Life podcast. And it seems to me like being of service and coaching and mentoring and that sort of thing is something that seems to really hit home for you. And if I'm off, please, let me know. But talk to me a little bit about, these different programs, particularly the college, and kind of your, why is this important to you, I guess is the real question I'm asking. What's your why behind all of this?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things I have in the podcast is why not me? Why not now? And so it goes to a question that is asked a lot is like, well, I'm not ready right now. Well, you're never going to be ready. So if you're never going to be ready, that kind of means you're always ready if you're going to do it anyway.
Right.
So,
It's a little twist of logic.
yeah, and it's like there's never a perfect time to have a child, right? There's never a perfect time to buy a new house. There's never a perfect time to take that risk. There's never a perfect time to jump. It's funny. I was up at fishing lodge this past weekend, and I've never fished in my life, and I'm terrified of snakes. And I've been trying to like face all these different fears, heights. I've jumped out of a plane, and I've just done all these weird things that are just like in my own head. I've had some really big fears on it. And snakes was one of them. So like saw a snake, and I just watched it and like looked at it, braced it. Why the hell am I scared of this thing? You know what I mean? I'm not in the Arizona desert or something like that with a rattlesnake, but there was one here. Um, but yeah, facing those fears and then talking about like with people's future. When I was a kid, my whole family was educated and university bound, and they actually gave me an intervention when I was 17. They thought my dad wasn't being hard enough on me for not going to college because they just came from a place. At the time, it lit a fire under me to prove them all wrong. But at the time, now I can look back and say they just loved and cared about me, and they knew that if you go to college or university, you're probably going to be able to get a job. You'll probably find a partner. You'll probably be able to buy a house and get married, and you'll probably be able to reproduce and have kids.
Right.
They didn't know anything else. They knew that if you don't go to college or university, you're a bum, and that was the narrative for a lot of people, right? Um, because in Canada, like a lot of the tradespeople were immigrants that came to Canada, whether they were Italian or Portuguese. Now there's Ukrainians and all different types of immigrants, which is amazing,
Yeah.
especially ones getting into the trades. But not a lot of like standardized people are just getting into this opportunities. So for me, giving back is like I was pretty lost as a child, especially because sports were kind of my go-to for a long time. And then when they stopped, it was like, well, what are you going to do now? You're not really good at school. Um, which, I won alumni of distinction through the college that we went to. And once I found something that I liked and again had a passion for. So I try to find those things within people, but also like give them a little bit of support and motivation. I've been told I'm never
Yeah.
going to do a lot of things, and not just to prove people wrong, but to also prove myself right. With the college, I felt like I had the problem solved of our youth, which is that our youth are fantastic. You just have to get to know them. We are
Hmm.
very, very quick to judge. They don't want to work anymore. They're all on their phones. They're all on their It's like, man, our parents said the same thing about us, and their parents said the same thing about them, right?
Right.
Like, you know, and my uncle was a hippie, and he's smoking grass, and this and like, we're all just evolution, right? And get to know these kids, right? Like, my girlfriend's kids resell Pokemon cards online with group chats and make a fortune. Why wouldn't they do that, right?
Yeah.
You get these celebrity TikTokers that are they're going viral and making money. Why wouldn't you do that? Like, what do
Yeah.
we're very quick to judge. So I find I love getting to know our youth, and find out where they're at and see if the trades are right for them. In Canada, we have winter, so usually, if you're a plumber, an HVAC technician, there's no heat or hydro in the building, so you're going out in the winter and sweating in the summer, and that's not for everybody, but it might be for you if you feel like at the end of the day when you put up 100 feet of pipe or a couple units, you feel accomplished. And I remember back in the day, there was no better feeling than being a proud plumber. And so if I can give that opportunity to somebody else, and also to teach people to be business owners, and not make some of the mistakes that I made, which were, in my opinion, I don't think everybody's capable of handling challenges the way that I was built to. Um, one of the terminology we don't use is stress. We don't say stress in our business.
Hmm.
Um, you can't overcome a stress, but you can overcome a challenge. And people misconstrue a challenging day for a stressful day. So if you go home to your spouse and say that, oh man, babe, my day was so stressful, it really doesn't give that perception of like I accomplished something, or I,
Right.
wanted to be there.
That you volunteered to be there to go through the challenge in the first place.
Yeah, and like, especially as an entrepreneur, like sign me up. Like, you know what I mean? You're not stopping me. So
I do know what you mean.
yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, man, if I have a day where I'm not doing something, I got a problem. So that to me is a much more challenging than being productive and busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really really appreciate all of that, honestly, and just kind of your just general feel about this, and what I really love is the kind of scrappiness that I hear from not only you but I think just a lot of people who are in the trades, where it's like you kind of had that choice. Well, I can go to college, I can go out there and still make really really good money, probably even better money than some of the attorneys and doctors and different people who are going to college, and it's really about, I think, like you mentioned, being willing to step up to the challenge and really, I think, find what your edge is
Mhm.
really as a human being, and that's what I love about what just listening to you here is it seems like you're one of these types that's really just going to consistently challenge yourself because you want to just be the best that you can be. Am
Yeah,
I
thank you.
am
Man.
I
That
am
means a
I
lot.
terribly far off there?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. And then empowering others as you go, right? Like
Yeah,
people, I love when somebody that I've helped is doing better than me in whatever the thing is that I helped, because they're supposed to. They're skipping steps,
sure,
which is great
sure.
because they're like, it's like when you put the coat down for the lady that's walking across down with the taxi, right? That's the goal. They're not supposed to get wet. Here, take the information, right? The best gift you can give to a mentor is doing what they said and being successful. It's the best gift.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate that. And if somebody were interested in connecting with you, maybe looking at further into the podcast or some of the ways that that you mentor and help other people in the industry, what would how would they do that?
Yeah, the best thing to do is just reach out on LinkedIn. Um, I respond to all my DMs as long as they're not AI generated, and
Right?
yeah, I'm always looking to connect with great minds in the industry, and I think it's such a great place to connect.
Fantastic. And for the guy out there that's in the trades now, or thinking about getting in the trades, and for that matter, maybe wanting to be an entrepreneur at some point, and start their own company and bring their unique kind of specialness to the marketplace anyway, what advice would you give them?
Speak to as many people as you can about it, and realize the advice that you want to take versus the advice that sometimes is immediately given. Um, there's three types of people. They're quick to be identified. Number one is your friends and family, who are usually going to try to keep you safe. So if you're doing something okay or well or good, they're going to try to keep you there. They're not going to be ones to take you to get risk. There's number two is everybody else. They're in your life. They go, they come and they go. And number three is a unicorn. That's somebody that sees the best in you that you don't see in yourself. That's going to not only help and support you through the journey, but be there through all the good and the bad. And so as soon as you can identify what a unicorn looks like, the beautiful thing is you can become one. So try to find those unicorns, and you'll be doing just fine.
I love that. We become what we strive to ultimately become. Wonderful. Well, hey Daniel, this has been absolutely fantastic. And once again, folks, I'm being joined here by Daniel Guest from Guest Plumbing and HVAC out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. He is the host of the Guest Life podcast and also involved in the Trade Smart College, also there out in Toronto. Daniel, thanks again for coming on the show, man. I've really appreciated having you on.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a great day.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. You too.